asking which way to go? Which way Nigeria? Are you still asking on a morning like this? You don't know the way to go? The way to go is up there. New value system. New constitutional order. Are people patriotic to their land? Good leadership. Fight against corruption. Free and fair elections. The defeat of terrorism and banditry. These are the ways to go. It's our land. Arise and shine, O nation. Wake up, Africa. Good morning from this side of time. The radio man is here. The program is State Affairs on Splash 105.5 FM, the Integrity Station. I am Edmund Obilo. Welcome to the class of history, politics, and power.
In the global village of conflicting ideologies and complexity, and social reconstruction becomes expedient.
They never told you how you offended them?
I'm not on trial, so I can't go before.
Join the radio man, Edmond Obilo, on State Affairs for local and international politics, security, extensive economic analysis, interviews, and world power play.
Nigerians must choose the path they want to follow. Follow the same looters and sponsors of violence who control the political structures or encourage the formation of a new leadership team.
Be a global citizen and join the radio revolution on State Affairs. State Affairs with Edmond Obilo. Radio just got deeper.
Daganan kilo betaning di beta maso sanalom muasa benge kaputo
State Affairs.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo.
Let me welcome you with these words from Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was a visionary leader of the 20th century. He makes this point: the black man must be up and doing if he will break down the prejudice of the rest of the world. He says we must strike out for ourselves in the course of material achievement, and by our own effort and energy present to the world those forces by which the progress of man is judged. Are you in class this morning? Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey says that the black man must be up and doing if he will break down the prejudice of the rest of the world. He says we must strike out for ourselves in the course of material achievement, and by our own effort and energy present to the world those forces by which the progress of man is judged. Are you there? Marcus Garvey made this statement in the 20th century during the fight for black emancipation in the United States. These words are not just a call to action, but a blueprint for the transformation of Africa and its people. So when Sonny Okosu asked there, which way Nigeria? Which way Africa? It reminds me of the words of Marcus Garvey. Today, Africa stands at a pivotal moment in history. The world is rapidly advancing in technology, economics, and innovation, and Africa must not only keep pace, but lead. That is my dream. The time has come for us to rise, united in purpose, and take charge of our destiny. We must embrace the spirit of self-reliance, harness our collective energy, and channel it into building nations that reflect our greatness. African people are great. Nation building is not the responsibility of a few. It is the duty of every African. The African in Cameroon, Rwanda, Kenya, the African in Somalia, the African in Nigeria, Ghana. It is our responsibility. From the bustling cities to the rural villages, each of us has a role to play. Whether through education, entrepreneurship, or innovation, we must strive for excellence in all we do. Brothers and sisters, friends, let us invest in our youth, empower our women, and create systems that foster creativity and productivity. Let us build industries, advance technology, and create solutions that address our unique challenges. The world often underestimates Africa, but we know the depth of our potential. We are a continent rich in resources, culture, and talent. It is time to prove to the world that Africa is not just a land of potential, but a land of achievement. Are you there? Let us break down the barriers of prejudice by showcasing our ingenuity, resilience, and determination for progress. Let us present to the world an Africa that is self-sufficient, technologically advanced, and economically prosperous. Marcus Garvey reminds us that progress is judged by the forces we present to the world. Let us present an Africa that is bold, innovative, and unyielding in its pursuit of greatness. Let us rise, not just for ourselves, but for future generations, and build a legacy that will inspire the world. Africans, the time is now. Let us be up and doing. Let us strike out for ourselves and claim our rightful place in the world. Together, we can achieve the extraordinary. Together, we can build an Africa that shines as a symbol of hope, progress, and unity. Rise, rise, Africa. Rise. The future is ours to create. 6 miles to the moon, we shall reach the stars. The program a State Affairs on Splash 105.5 FM, the Integrity Station.
Do you come with two teachers? You were not informed too? Continue. No problem. God will see us. There is God. There is God in everything we are doing. Those bloods that are sharing in Bronu will answer. What of two teachers, what of two teachers that can tell us that they conducted that exam? Do you come with any? Principal? No, too. You waka come. Okay. Now the first lady is calling you. Come, I want to help you. Come to find your child, your missing child. Will you keep quiet? No. Child. There is God, oh. There is God, oh. The bloods we are sharing, there is God, oh. 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 There is God.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
That is Patience Goodluck Jonathan, a former First Lady of the Nigerian state. That cry reminds us of the Chibok girls. Recently, a United States congressman raised an alarm. His name is Scott Perry. Scott Perry accused U.S. aid of funding terrorist groups, including Boko Haram. Boko Haram is a terrorist group founded in 2002 by Muhammad Yusuf. The group's objectives include promoting Sunni Islam and eliminating Shia Islam in Nigeria. So that was Patience Jonathan. What is it that Scott Perry knows that we don't know? Should we take him seriously? Scott Perry makes the point that U.S. aid funded Boko Haram, especially during Goodluck Jonathan's time. But the United States of America ambassador to Nigeria, Richard Mills, has said there was no evidence that the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, was funding Boko Haram or any terrorist group in Nigeria. Now, let's reflect. You know, Goodluck Jonathan wrote a book after leaving office entitled My Transition Hours. So I want to reflect on some of the points that Jonathan made in that book. Does it prove Scott Perry right that perhaps the United States forced Goodluck Jonathan out of the presidency? Does it prove Scott Perry right? Remember the abduction of 317 schoolgirls from Government Secondary School Jangabe, Zamfara State on February 26, 2021. What that abduction did was to send shockwaves across Nigeria and the world. This tragic incident was a grim reminder of the 2014 Chibok girls' abduction, where 276 schoolgirls were kidnapped by Boko Haram terrorists in Borno State. The recurrence of such atrocities raises critical questions about Nigeria's security architecture, leadership, and the lessons learned or not learned from past tragedies. In his book, My Transition Hour, former President Goodluck Jonathan provides a detailed account of his administration's handling of the Chibok girls' crisis, offering insights into the challenges he faced and the political dynamics that shaped the narrative at the time. His reflections are not only a defense of his actions, but also a critique of the systemic failures and political machinations that exacerbated the crisis. The Chibok girls' adoption was a crisis of leadership and accountability. The abduction of the girls on April 14, 2014, remains one of the darkest chapters in Nigeria's history. President Jonathan delayed acknowledgement of the incident about 14 days after it occurred, and this drew widespread criticism of his moves. However, in his book My Transition Hour, Jonathan provides context for his administration's response, pointing to the complexities of the situation and the role of state actors in the crisis. Let me read from his book. Jonathan writes, "Why and how did this happen? These were innocent teenagers. Why did the state governor not provide security for the school as he had promised after he rejected the advice of the federal government not to hold examinations in Chibok and instead move the girls to more secure centers?" So the governor Jonathan refers to here is Shettima. Shettima is now the vice president of Nigeria. So Jonathan is asking in his book, why did Shettima allow those girls to go to Chibok for exams after the federal government had warned him not to allow that? Jonathan continues, the governors of the other two states facing similar fate heeded the advice of the federal government by relocating children from affected schools. The former president says, if the children must stay behind in line with the position of Borno state government, why didn't the state governor make arrangements to protect the school children? Are you there? You see the power of books. If you read Jonathan's book, you begin to reflect deeper on Scott Perry's recent revelation that USAID financed Boko Haram. Jonathan's questions highlight the tension between federal and state authorities in addressing the security crisis of the time. He argues that the Borno state government failed in its responsibility to protect the school children, despite warnings from the federal government about the risk of holding examinations in Chibok. This raises important questions about the division of responsibility in Nigeria's federal system and the need for greater collaboration between levels of government in tackling security challenges. Let's look at the role of international actors and political opposition. Jonathan also shed light on the role of international actors, particularly the United States, in the Chibok crisis. He recounts a meeting between northern governors and then United States National Security Advisor Susan Rice. In that meeting, the Borno State Governor, Kashim Shettima, made what Jonathan describes as spurious claims about his administration. Now, did the governors get any clearance from Jonathan before they traveled to the United States to discuss with the Obama administration? Why was Jonathan so powerless that he could not stop them? Who was propping up the state governors to disobey the president at that time? Northern governors went to the United States. And Kashim Shettima, now the vice president, then Borno State Governor, led that delegation. So Jonathan is raising those points in his... Let me read from his book. The tactical attacks by the Obama administration were many. They refused to provide any real military backing or equipment to aid the rescue of the Chibok girls, citing the Lehi law, which they claimed prevented them from supporting any military that was engaged in human rights abuse. But this law did not stop them from assisting the armed forces of Nigeria's neighbors who had been accused of serious human rights violation. Why did Obama hate Jonathan so much that he refused to give her arms to fight Boko Haram? Where was Boko Haram getting the sophisticated arms they were using to attack the military government or the military of Nigeria? Not a military government. So this revelation in Jonathan's books underscores the geopolitical complexities of the crisis and the limitations of international support in addressing Nigeria's security challenges. I want us to listen to Patience Jonathan again. It reminds us of where we are coming from.
Do you come with two teachers? You were not informed too? Continue. No problem. God will see us. There is God. There is God in everything we are doing. Those bloods that are sharing in Borno will answer. What of two teachers, what of two teachers that can tell us that they conducted that exam? Do you come with any? Principal? No, too. You waka come. Okay. Now the first lady is calling you. Come, I want to help you. Come to find your child, your missing child. Will you keep quiet? No. Child. There is God, oh. There is God, oh. The bloods we are sharing, there is God, oh. There is God, oh. There is God, oh. There is God, oh. There is God, oh.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
Were there information that Patience Jonathan knew that we didn't know at that time that made her cry? You know, she kept saying, there is God, oh, there is God, oh. Were there certain things she knew that she just couldn't say at that time? In March 2014, 12 governors from Nigeria's northern states embarked on a significant diplomatic mission to the United States, where they were hosted at the White House. The visit, which included meetings with high-ranking United States officials such as National Security Advisor Susan Rice and Secretary of State John Kerry, was aimed at addressing the pressing security and developmental challenges facing northern Nigeria. However, the trip was met with skepticism and criticism back home, with many Nigerians questioning the timing and purpose of the visit amid economic recession and escalating insecurity. The chairman of the Northern State Governors Forum and governor of Borno State, Alhaji Kashim Shettima, anticipated the backlash. In a statement released by his spokesperson, Isa Gusu, Shettima acknowledged the likely public outcry, but defended the trip as a necessary step towards securing peace and development for the region. If you listened to Bolaji Akinyemi, former Minister of External Affairs, in an interview on channels, he made reference to the visit of the governors to the United States without carrying Goodluck Jonathan along. Bolaji Akinyemi must have raised some conspiracy theory about that visit, and with recent revelation that US aid funded Boko Haram, Bolaji Akinyemi talked about a committee he belonged to, and in that committee, they got information that helicopters and jets were landing in the forest in the north, distributing sophisticated weapons. He asked, who had that capacity to do that, if not a big power? Is Nigeria that weak that we cannot even stop such invasion? Shettima in that statement emphasized that the visit was an opportunity to re-engage with American partners on critical issues that could help transition the region from volatility to peace and development. He highlighted the dire development indices in northern Nigeria, which he described as some of the most damning in the country and a contributing factor to the region's security challenges. You know, sometimes when I listen to northern leaders speak about insecurity and poverty in the north, I just pity them. The poverty in the north is a product of poor leadership, especially the poor leadership of northern leaders, the traditional institutions, and the religious institutions. Yet when they speak, they don't point at themselves. It is quite easy to always run to America, Britain, France. We've been running to America, Britain, France, and other countries since 1960. We remain stagnant or underdeveloped. We have lost the ability to think our way through our problems. We are not self-reliant. We have lost our confidence. We beg for money round the world. Somehow, we will make things right. I'm not talking about tomorrow. I'm talking about now. The same applies to southern leaders. They are full of themselves and men of little thinking. They have impoverished the land, yet they don't understand that the violence that they want to prevent is as a result of their actions. If they sat down, rethink their actions, and be patriotic, we will start solving the problems. But we will not wait for them to sit down, because it seems they are not ready to say it. So the visit of northern governors to the United States, what does it mean? The trip to Washington and the meeting with United States officials align with former President Goodluck Jonathan's account in his book, My Transition Hour. Jonathan recounts how the Borno State Governor Kashim Shettima and other northern governors met with Susan Rice at the White House just weeks before the Chibok girls' abduction in April 2014. You know, immediately that abduction happened, America stood out. Obama's wife was out with the Chibok girls banner. Let's think. She was out. Jonathan writes, all the 19 governors of northern Nigeria had been invited to a meeting with the then United States National Security Advisor to Obama, Susan Rice, at the White House on March 18, 2014. Jonathan says a few weeks before the Chibok girls were kidnapped. At that meeting, the Borno State governor vehemently made spurious claims about my administration that he had to be cautioned by his Gombe State counterpart, Alhaji Ibrahim Dankwabo. Shetima is now the vice president. Jonathan's account suggests that the northern governor's visit to Washington was not solely focused on addressing regional challenges, but also involved political maneuvering against his administration. He implies that the Borno State governor used the platform to criticize the federal government, further complicating the already tense relationship between the federal, state authorities, and the United States of America. Let's listen to Goodluck Jonathan talk about Chibok girls when he was the president, and he made this speech in 2014.
We have the records from the WAEC office. 530 students were registered for WAEC at that center. Presently, about 193 have been relocated to another school, and they are writing the exams. Some of the boys are not even writing the exams now. Based on the total number of boys, about 130 boys registered, but so far, some of them, the last compulsory paper that was mathematics. Some of the boys didn't even go for the mathematics, and the number of the girls didn't go for the mathematics. The assumption is that these girls that didn't go for the mathematics, this is a compulsory exam, maybe among the kidnapped ones. But because the boys were day students, the school was a female school before. It was a girls' school. But because of lack of secondary schools within the area, and the boys were going to distant places, and that they were being waylaid on the roads, so they decided to make it a co-educational school. So you have about 130 boys that also registered for the WAEC, and they stayed. There were no hostels for them, so they stayed in their homes of day students. Some of them didn't write the mathematics, so you cannot just put it as if you have concluded that aspect that all the girls who didn't write for the mathematics were kidnapped. No, there must be a little more. Of course, we do know that not everybody will register for exams, go for the exams. So we are working on it.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
Domestically, Jonathan faced intense pressure from the opposition and civil society groups, including me, particularly during the Bring Back Our Girls movement. While the movement played a crucial role in keeping the Chibok girls' plight in the public eye, Jonathan suggests that it was also politicized. He writes in his book, at a point, the entire campaign of the opposition was riding on the girls. He continues, I thought these people could even pray that the girls stayed wherever they were until they were through with their schemings. It was, however, not surprising that some leaders of the Bring Back Our Girls movement were rewarded with promotions and appointments shortly after the general elections. Have you read Jonathan's book, My Transition Hour? Look for the book, read it. Interesting one. Jonathan's assertion that the movement was co-opted for political gain raises questions about the intersection of activism and politics in Nigeria. Why the Bring Back Our Girls campaign was instrumental in mobilizing global attention. Its perceived alignment with the opposition may have undermined its credibility in the eyes of some. But it reminds us of the power of propaganda. It reminds us of psychological programming. Are you in class? Are you with the radio man? Are you on X? Are you watching on LinkedIn? Are you watching on Splash FM Facebook page? Are you watching on my YouTube channel? Welcome to class. Remember, you can tweet at me. Yeah. I want to read your messages. What do you think? Let me know. So come on X, on YouTube, leave your comments. Everything being equal, will be back on Facebook soon. So join the class on X. You can also listen on State Affairs app on Google Play Store, State Affairs app on iOS. Just search for Edmondo below, State Affairs. You can download the app if you don't have the app yet. Let me see what you're saying on X. I can see Abeza Chaso Bino here. Good morning. Nati is in class. Chibok issues is planned and Shetima cannot deny that. That is what Nati is saying. African advocate on X. He says Africa needs men of good convenience to grow, not these corrupt and irresponsible leaders ruling the continent at the moment. Afiz is on X. Good morning, Afiz. Happy to have you here. Have you read Babangida's autobiography? Have you seen the book? Babangida's autobiography. I have a copy here. A Journey in Service, an autobiography. Ibrahim Babangida. I think that's the book everyone is talking about now. Have you read it? I think I've read about 80 pages. But by this weekend, I should do justice to it. It kept me awake last night. So I'm going to focus on about 5 pages of this book, where Babangida talked about the coup, the January 1966 coup. I'll come to that soon. So just stay with the radio, man. Stay in class. Let's learn and unlearn. Who is in class? Adegoke Folua Abraham. As you leave your comment, you also repost, right? That's how we do it here. Ulufash, good morning. There is no truth in what the U.S. congressman said regarding the use of U.S. aid to finance Boko Haram. The U.S. congressman said that to back Donald Trump's decision to stop forwarding U.S. aid. Ogedengbe says, from your analysis this morning, I could see the big picture. The plan had been all along. The plan to install their assets in power. Nigeria is now the 51st state of the United States. Are you sure? United States has 50 states. Will Nigeria be part of the state? No. We will not accept that. Nigeria is a sovereign country. Keep your messages coming in. Let me know if you're in class. I was talking about the power of propaganda and psychological programming. One of the most striking aspects of Jonathan's account is his critique of the role of propaganda in shaping public perception of his administration. He argues that the electorate was programmed to see his government as the villain despite the complexities of the crisis. He writes in his book, saying, the strange thing was that all of the protests were directed at me rather than the state governor, whose responsibility it was to provide first-line security for the school as the chief security officer of the state. Such is the power of psychological programming. Yes, I have done a course on psychological programming and propaganda. I understand what Jonathan is talking about, but I'm not saying that was what happened. But I know the power of psychological programming. You know, I used what Hitler and Joseph Goebbels did in Germany as a case study. And I can see the power of propaganda and psychological programming. It can be used for good, it can be used for bad. It depends on where you stand. But the fight for power is always a fight for the mind. That is why churches said that the empires of the future are the empires of the mind. Those who rule, those who govern. You see, when the oppressed worships the oppressor, you know what that means? It is psychological programming. You are the oppressed, yet you are worshiping the oppressor. That is psychological programming. So Jonathan makes that point in his book. He says the strange thing was that all of the protests were directed at me rather than the state governor, whose responsibility it was to provide first-line security for the school as the chief security officer of the state. Such is the power of psychological programming. The electorate was programmed to see my administration as the villain. If someone was conducting an experiment on how propaganda could be used to break down a government, it worked. It was a roaring success. Jonathan's reflection highlights the challenges of leadership in Nigeria. That is not to say that Jonathan didn't have his failings. He had his failings, serious one for that. And that provided a gap for the opponent to come in. So the abduction of the Chibok girls and the subsequent crisis in other parts of Nigeria talks about a failure of leadership. And when leadership fails domestically, you create room for international actors to penetrate your system. Because leadership failure leads to insecurity, poverty, and violence. And when you create such a scenario, chaotic scenario, you open the room for international actors to penetrate your system. And when they come in, they create more chaos so that they are able to grab your resources, your minerals, your oil, and leave your people in perpetual poverty. The program is State Affairs on Splash 105.5 FM, the Integrity Station. I am Edmondo Billo. Stay tuned and stay cool.
State Affairs with Edmondo Billo is live.
Splash FM 105.5.
Some of them are even arguing that because only Ademoyega, Major Ademoyega, who is a Yoruba major, if not the whole 8 of them were Igbos. That was the premise they look at it from. And it was a wrong premise. You see, a revolution is a revolution. Whether people are from the same place, provided you have the same mind to remove those in power, it doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter at all. I don't agree with those people who tag Nzogo revolution as Igbo revolution.
You know, some would say that the killings were targeted towards certain regions.
Mm-hmm.
Why another region was excluded from the killings.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the region that was excluded from the killing, the eastern region, most of the officers that carried out that coup came from that region or close to it. So they have defined that coincidence as an Igbo coup.
Not even coincidence. You can't say it's coincidence.
Okay.
It's a reality. The revolutionary wanted to change the government. Who were the people who were holding the apparatus of the government? The ruling class, the ruling party. Sarara was the head of the party. He stayed in Kaduna. If you want to change that government without eliminating Sarara, do you think that government that coup will succeed? That was why they became target of the revolutionaries.
What about Akintola?
Akintola was, yes, Akintola. You see what happened was that they made an alliance with the party of Akintola. That was, I was telling that the ruling party wanted to extend their political tentacle to capture power in the West. And it deteriorated to crisis, serious crisis. You see? So Western region became a problematic region that must be dealt with. The Prime Minister, Tafawa Balewa, who was supposed to use his power to quell the situation in the West, refused. So when Uyo came up, they wanted to bring peace in the Western region. Even when they are talking about Igbo Coup, I always laugh at them. When you say that it was an Igbo Coup, who was the person who was the mark to become the prime minister? Was it Okpara in the east? Was it Azikiwe, who had no power, who was a titular president general? It was Awolowo from the west. Then what type of interest the revolutionary wanted to protect? If they call it an Igbo coup, picking somebody from the west to become the prime minister. So they had a national interest, not an Igbo interest at all.
You sound as if Nzogu is your hero.
Yes, he's my hero. He's my hero. Up till now, he's my hero. He's my hero.
Otsoja, you're saying that?
Yes. And because if he's not a hero, he's a nationalist. Nzogu was a nationalist to the core. You see, people, all these politicians are talking from their both sides of their mouth. When Nzogu was killed in July 1967, around the campuses of Nsukka University, in the night, by 21 Battalion, under Captain Wushishi. They recognized his body and they informed Gowon ordered them to remove the body to Kaduna for a befitting burial, national burial. He was given that national honor. Nzogu was given that national honor. So he was a hero. And when people talk about
Live.
Buhari didn't want him.
Yeah.
How?
Buhari didn't want him because he was afraid of him. The people around him didn't want him. Remember that after Buhari became president, within a year, there was an estrangement between Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Muhammadu Buhari. And the story even went so far as to state that they wanted to remove his pass to the State House. That probably happened or didn't happen, I'm not sure of that. But that was the level of the estrangement.
Hey, mama, my good friend. They say, show me your friend, tell you oh, my friend, I know fit deny. Ibwezi The good times we shared, never ever ever forend. I will never forget. Good times are always good. Lately, I have been so cold, and I wanna be with you, my friend. Good times are always good. Lately, I have been so cold, and I wanna be with you, my friend. They say blood is thicker than water. Some friends are loyal than brothers. True. It's who I run to when life sometimes gets hard. I know you'll never talk behind my back. I pray that I live long with you, my friend. Forgive every wrong I do. I may not have money, but with you I am rich, my friend. Some family, they will judge and condemn you, but you never leave me, no, you never ever leave me. I may have knowledge, but with you I am wise, my friend. Good times are always good. Lately, I've been so cold, and I wanna be with you, my friend. Good times are always good. Lately, I have been so cold, and I wanna be with you, my friend.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
And so when that had happened, Buhari seemed to have relented. He didn't challenge them. But he had made up his mind that it was for Ahmed Lawan. So that's why you saw that Ahmed Lawan was insistent on his what do you call it, candidacy. A lot of things happened that time. You know, the vice president was running, Rotimi Amechi was running, and many of them were given false hope, I don't know why, by the people around the president, that they were actually the anointed one.
But Lawan was the anointed one.
Lawan was the anointed one. But I don't think the Holy Spirit was in that anointing.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
Was there a deal before Buhari won the 2015 primaries of the APC?
No, there was no deal that I'm aware of.
There was no deal?
I don't think there was any deal.
There was no deal that after you,
I believe there was a tacit understanding that if this man works to put you there, if he had an ambition also to come there, it was only natural for you to be in sync with him. But he didn't get it. He didn't cry over it. All he wanted to do was work for it.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
In Nigeria, a president is powerful.
Yes.
He is the most powerful.
Yes.
And when I read here that Buhari didn't want him,
yes,
If Buhari didn't want him, would he have gotten the APC ticket?
Well, he did.
So what happened?
That's the humble. That is stressed.
What happened?
What happened? Let me tell you a story, which many people don't know. When some governors, let me put it this way, when Atiku Abubakar emerged as the candidate for the PDP, People's Democratic Party, some governors from the north, about 5 of them, I won't mention them, went to see Buhari. And they said that if Atiku emerged as candidate, they didn't see anybody who could beat Atiku from the south. So they said the president should consider picking a candidate from the north.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
And so when that had happened, Buhari seemed to have relented. He didn't challenge them. But he had made up his mind that it was for Ahmed Lawan. So that's why you saw that Ahmed Lawan was insistent on his candidacy. A lot of things happened that time. You know, the vice president was running, Rotimi Amechi was running, and many of them were given false hope, I don't know why, by the people around the president that they were actually the anointed one.
But Lawan was the anointed one.
Lawan was the anointed one. But I don't think the Holy Spirit was in that anointing.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
Lawal was the anointed one, but he doesn't think the Holy Spirit was in that anointing. That's the voice of Sam Amatsai, the author of the book Beating All Odds, Diary and Essays on How Bola Tinubu Became President. It's an interview you should not miss. I'll be bringing you part 1 on this edition of State Affairs. Beating All Odds, Diary and Essays on How Bola Tinubu Became President. Look at this book. The author of this book is on State Affairs, Sam Amatsai. There is a lot to talk about politics, power, and history. Are you a Baptist, a supporter of Tinubu? Are you an obedient, a supporter of Peter Obi? You know, in the interview, I told Sam Amatsai that he has written a book on how to defeat Tinubu in the 2027 election. He paused for a while. He said, how? So if you want to defeat Tinubu in the 2027 election, read about Tinubu's strategy here. But there's one book. I'm expecting the book next week. It's a book on Tinubu. And if you want to defeat Tinubu in the 2027 election, I want you to read that book. Sam Amatsai is one of the editors of that book. I will introduce the book to you by the next program. Why did I say that book will teach you how to defeat Tinubu? Aregbesola wrote about Tinubu in that book. Fashola wrote about Tinubu in that book. Abiola Ajimobi wrote about Tinubu in that book. Sam Amatsai wrote about Tinubu in that book. Tinubu's men, like Lai Mohammed, wrote about Tinubu in that book. And that book was written before Tinubu even dreamt of becoming the president. Now, while I read some pages, these men described their relationship with Tinubu, the strategic meetings, They told us the Tinubu they know. So for you to defeat a man, you need to know the man. So if you are obedient, I recommend this book to you, Beating All Odds, Diary and Essays on How Tinubu Became President. I also recommend the one I'll be describing next week. You can get this book on udarabooks.com. udarabooks.com. You can also order it through my WhatsApp number, 080 999 18449. 080 18449. Beating All Odds, Diary and Essays on How Bola Tinubu Became President. Now, IBB has written a book. IBB. Badamosi Babangida. Ibrahim. Let's read from IBB's book. It is good to read. And it's good to write. You know, I'm happy that these men are writing. It excites me. It excites me. I like it when you tell your story. Yes. From page 36, let's read. As a young second lieutenant, I was lost for words. I was only 24 and never known the type of military intervention we were experiencing. So what military intervention is he talking about? He says talking about the military coup d'etat of 1966 brings me to one of the darkest moments in our national history. In the early hours of January 15th, 1966, I was woken up from my sleep at about 5 a.m. with loud, continuous bangs on my door by my good friend, Lieutenant Colonel Ugokwe. I had just gotten home hours from a late night party and didn't want to be disturbed. And if you have read stories of the coup, you discover that most of the military officers that were killed either went to party, came back late. It seems these men were partying all the time. And Babangida have just said he just came back from party too. Aguiyi Ironsi went to party. And they will come back late. They were all going to parties. It is good to party or work but no play. Makes us all go a dull boy. So he had just come back from party. Let's continue to read. He said, but when the banging persisted, I grudgingly got out to confront a bewildered Christopher, all dressed up in field uniform, screaming at me, Ibrahim, get up. We have to go. Go where at this time, I queried in reply. Still breathless, Chris continued, almost incoherently. Didn't you hear that there has been a coup and we've been told to report to the squadron to see our boss? Our boss was, of course, Major Hassan Usman Katsina. Babangida says, I quickly changed into my uniform as we headed out to the squadron, and we drove past Nasarawa, which housed the minister's quarters and the official residence of the Sultana of Sokoto and Premier of northern Nigeria, Sir Ahmadu Bello. We noticed that the Sultana's home was on fire. Chris said he was sure the troops had bombed it. We soon arrived at the squadron headquarters, where Major Hassan Katsina was waiting to address us. Very soberly, Major Hassan addressed us in his office and told us what he knew then. He told us that his friend and coursemate at Santos, Major Chukuma Kaduna Nzogu, had led a coup d'etat, and that Nzogu had confronted him earlier in the day to make up his mind to join the coup or face the consequences of not doing so. Hassan said his agreement to play along with Nzogu saved his life. Major Hassan then instructed us to ensure everybody in the squadron stayed inside. I'm reading from Babangida's autobiography, A Journey in Service. A Journey in Service. I'm reading from page 36. Babangida says, as a young second lieutenant, I was left for words. I was lost for words. I was only 24 and had never known this type of military intervention we were experiencing. He was a lieutenant at that time, a second lieutenant. He says, I was only vaguely familiar with Gamal Abdel Nasser and his Free Officers movement, ousting King Farouk of Egypt in 1952. But that was textbook stuff. To have experienced it firsthand was different. On page 37, he says, later that morning, acting presumably as the leader of the Supreme Council of the Revolution of the Nigerian Armed Forces, Major Nzogu addressed all officers in Kaduna at the brigade headquarters, looking quite ruffled in his bandaged neck and left arm. Nzogu, in a speech in which he referred to us of the revolution. He then appealed for cooperation and understanding from all the officers present. At a subsequent press conference, Nzogu elaborated on what he described as Operation Damisa, Damisa being the Hausa word for the leopard, which never changes its spots, describing the operation as a necessary service to our country to rid it of all its faith and corruption. Later in the day, the gory details of what happened, not just in Kaduna but other parts of the country, started to emerge. Babangida writes, in Kaduna, the Premier Sir Ahmadu Bello, his senior wife, Hafsatu, his senior assistant security secretary, Malam Ahmad Ben Musa, Ahmed Patagi, a government driver, and the head of his bodyguards, Zarumi, had all been killed before the break of dawn. He says there were other killings in Kaduna. The commander of the 1st Brigade of the Nigerian Army, Brigadier Samuel Ademulegun, and his pregnant wife, Latifa, were gunned down in their bedroom. Remember last year, we interviewed Sholakwe Ademulegun, the daughter of Brigadier Ademulegun, on this show. She was 6 years old at the time, and she was there when her father and mother were gunned down by the coupists. Babangida said not far away from their residence, the deputy commandant of the Nigerian Defense Academy, Colonel Raphael Shudende, was also murdered. Outside Kaduna, the story was duplicated in Ibadan and Lagos. In Ibadan, the deputy premier, Remi Fani Kayode, was arrested and detained. You know, he was lucky. The guys didn't gun him down, but they took him along. If the coup had not failed, because they took him to Lagos in their military truck. That is Femi Fani Kayode's daddy. So if the coup had not failed, what would have happened to him? Because it was when the coup failed that he was released. Babangida says the premier, Chief Samuel Ladoke Akintola, was not so lucky. The coup plotters killed him after he tried to put up a fight. You know, Akintola fired at the coupist. He had a machine gun at home. He knew that the coupists were going to come because they had intelligence that some young boys were planning coups. So he was prepared for them. He had learned how to shoot. So the information is that when they came, he opened fire on them. But they overpowered him. You know, they were military officers. And they were not kind to him. Babangida said the Lagos scene was just as horrific. Apart from the Prime Minister, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, and Finance Minister, Chief Festus Okutiebo. Have you read a book on Festus Okutiebo, who was the Finance Minister? If you want to read about Okutiebo, that flamboyant Ishekiri man, who was the Finance Minister under Tafawa Balewa. You know, his story is a story in history. If you want to read the story of Okutiebo, you can order his book through my WhatsApp number. That is 080 999 18449. He was killed in that January coup. Babangida continues. The Lagos scene was just as horrific, apart from Prime Minister Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa and Finance Minister Chief Festus Okutiebo, who were kidnapped from their residences and later murdered. Much of the leadership of the Nigerian army was wiped out. The Adjutant General of the Army, Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Pam, was the first to be picked up from the presence of his wife, Elizabeth. Babangida says he never came back alive. Then came the turn of Acting Chief of Staff at Army Headquarters, Colonel Kaur Mohammed, who was also assassinated. Lieutenant Colonel Abogo Legema, then the commandant of the 4th Battalion at Ibadan, was not spared either. Babangida said he was gunned down at his Federal Palace hotel room in Lagos. But one of the most painful, according to Babangida in his book, was the killing of Brigadier Zakaria Mai Malari. And I've read so much about that officer. So Babangida said, having only just remarried a month before the January coup, following the tragic death of his wife, Miriamu, Mai Malari was at 36, considered one of the finest officers of the Nigerian army. As I stated earlier, he embodied the best of military discipline, courage, service, respect, integrity, and enduring leadership skills. As the commander of the Southern Brigade, he had all the fighting forces of the battalions under him: the Field Artillery Corps, the Armored and Mechanized Squads. It was said then that Mai Malari could mobilize the entire brigade to fight back in the event of a foreign attack. Babangida said that was how important his position was at the time. The coup plotters knew that he needed to be eliminated for them to succeed. I am reading Babangida's book, his thoughts on the January 15th, 1966 coup. He is giving us the historical account of what happened. That is the power of books. Babangida said that Mai Malari initially escaped the mutineers when they struck at his 11 Thompson Avenue residence in Ikoyi, Lagos. But when from his hiding place in the shrubs around his home, he spotted his chief of staff and brigade major, Major Emmanuel Ifajuna driving past, he came out of hiding, believing that he was safe with his chief of staff. Unknown to him, his chief of staff, Major Ifajuna, was one of the plotters. Almost instantly, Mai Malari was gunned down by his chief of staff. Imagine. He was hiding. He had escaped. Mai Malari had escaped. But when he saw his chief of staff driving past, he now came out of hiding. Saying, thank God. I'm now safe, not knowing that his chief of staff was one of the leaders of the coup. That is Emmanuel Ifajuna. Nzogu led the coup in the north. Ifajuna led the coup in the south. And Ifajuna opened fire on his boss. Power. The power game. On his boss. And he came out to embrace him. And I've seen my chief of staff, I'm safe. You see why the counter coup was so bloody? Like blood for blood. That story touched me. You ran into the hand of your enemy. Should we say these guys were heartless or they were revolutionaries? Okay, let's read. Remember, this is a class of history, politics and power. Babangida said by Monday, January 17th, the situation had stabilized somewhat following the arrest and detention of Major Nzogu and some of the other coup plotters. And it also became clear that Brigadier General Johnson Thomas Umunnakwe Aguiyi Ironsi had assumed power as head of the military government and Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Babangida said it was a terrible time for the Nigerian military. As I have said elsewhere, as a young officer who saw all of this from a distance, probably ethnic sentiment did not drive the original objective of the coup plotters. Now, this is a part that I want us to listen to attentively. Babangida said on page 39, probably ethnic sentiments did not drive the original objective of the coup plotters. For instance, the head of the plotters, Major Kaduna Nzogu, was only Igbo in name. Born and raised in Kaduna, they call him Kaduna Nzogu. Chukuma Kaduna Nzogu. Babangida said, born and raised in Kaduna, his immigrant parents were from Okpanam in today's Delta State, which in 1966 was in the old Midwestern region. Nzogu spoke fluent Hausa and was as Hausa as any. He and his original team probably thought, even naively, that they could turn things around for better in the country. That said, it was heinously callous for Nzogu to have murdered Sir Ahmadu Bello and his wife, Hafsatu, because not only were they eminently adored by many, but also because they were said not to have put up a fight. From that moment, the purge was infiltrated by outsiders to its supposed original intention, and it took on an unmistakably ethnic coloration, compounded by the fact that there were no related coup activities in the eastern region. Babangida continues, it should, however, be borne in mind that some senior officers of Igbo extraction were also victims of the January coup. For instance, my erstwhile commander at the Reconnaissance Squadron in Kaduna, Lieutenant Colonel Otto Chinyelu Unegbe, was brutally gunned down by his own brother, Major Chris Anufuru. Are you seeing the power game? Lieutenant Colonel Chinyelu Unegbe was brutally gunned down by his own brother. Babangida used brother in quotes, not from the same mother. Major Chris Anufuru, in the presence of his pregnant wife. Their wives were always there. You know, their wives, you know. But it was only Ademulegun's wife that was killed. The other wives survived. Yes, in the presence of his pregnant wife at his 7-Point Road residence in Apapa for merely being a threat to the revolution. As a disciplined and strict officer who, as the Quartermaster General of the Army, was also in charge of ammunition, weapons, equipment, vehicles, and other vital items for the Army, the coup plotters feared that he might not cooperate with them. Babangida is talking about Lieutenant Colonel Unegbe here. Babangida said it should also be remembered that some non-Igbo officers like Major Adewale Ademoyega, Captain Ganiyu Adeleke, Lieutenant Fola Oyewole, and others took part in the failed coup. I think Fola Oyewole wrote a book, The Reluctant Rebel. Reluctant Rebel. Yeah, I think somebody borrowed me that book. I'm still reading it. I can't get a copy for myself. I'm still looking for the book. Another officer of Igbo extraction, Major John Obienu, crushed the coup. The point Babangida is making here, Igbo officers planned the coup, executed it. Igbo officers also crushed the coup. So the point is that how can it be an Igbo coup? Igbo officers planned it. Igbo officers crushed it. So Babangida goes on to make the point. Those who argue that the original intention of the coup plotters was anything but ethnic refer to the fact that the initial purpose of the plotters was to release Chief Obafemi Awolowo from prison immediately after the coup and make him the executive provisional president of Nigeria. The fact that these Igbo officers would do this to a man not known to be a great lover of the Igbos may have given the coup a different ethnic coloration. But again, I may be wrong here since this view is speculative. I admit that my position here may be naive insight of an unsuspecting young officer who viewed events from a distance. I'll stop there. There was something Achike Odenwa said in an interview he had with me. You know, Achike Odenwa wrote about the war. So in that interview about the war, we talked about Awolowo. You know, the statement he made about Awolowo is profound. I can't wait to play it. We'll release that interview soon. The statement he made about Awolowo is so profound that I was just looking at him. We have released an interview. There's a new book entitled Ojuku, Ezai, Diplomacy and Survival, written by Kana Yoi Sinulo. In that interview, we've posted that interview. You'll see it on my YouTube channel. You can watch it. You know, Kanayo Esinulo made profound statement about the Yoruba nation. I have not played the Kanayo Esinulo interview on this show, but I will play it at some point. I'm waiting for something to happen so that I'll bring it on. Babangida has raised these issues. So I'm bringing on an interview I have not brought on the show. I interviewed Peter Salifu in November 2024. Peter Salifu is the author of the book, The Bloody Nigeria-Biafra War. Peter Salifu fought in the Nigerian Civil War. An eyewitness account of the war, 1967 to 1970, from the frontline trenches. This is Peter Salifu's book. It is out of stock. So I'll play you his interview after this break to see if Peter Salifu agrees with Babangida's permutations in his book. The program is State Affairs on Splash 105.5 FM, the Integrity Station. Stay tuned and stay cool.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
To put yourself in the position of Ojukwu. He was the military governor. And when I was ambassador of Nigeria, I remember him visiting us. We clapped. He spoke beautiful English. He spoke intelligently. And we're proud that, yes, here is a governor that spoke like a British premier. But yet, he was leading a people that were being macheted, butchered, decapitated. What was this to do? And the people were in the mood to go. They could have been stopped if there were evidences of concessions to them.
By this time, Gowon had reneged on the Aburi Accord.
He had. And again, he outwitted them in the Aburi Accord because he was intelligent. He was prepared. He was prepared for it. He prepared for Aburi as if he went for war. The other thought it was officers' mess scene. Jack, Bob, Emeka. But the man had serious business. He had seen the people he was governing. He had no choice. There was no way he would have told those people that we are not going. They would kill him. But a leader must articulate and aggregate the feelings of his people. There were concession that could have been made. God have been telling him some concession at that time. Okay, things are difficult. He used to use one word. Let's move far apart so that we can come back again. He used to say something like that. And that's what we needed. A time for the heat to come down. But the East was not given that opportunity. There was not even demonstration of willingness, of sincerity to make reparations for what they have gone through.
So just like Murtala Muhammad, we are waiting to march on the East.
And in his own case, he marched and he killed so many people trying to cross from Asaba to Onitsha. Some unintelligent move that any non-military person would not do. Onitsha was under the control of Biafra. We were going to cross from Asaba. Lowland. Onitsha was on the slightly high land. We were going to cross across River Niger. They just opened fire on them. And they lost. Ask General Akinle, they will tell you such stories. Read about them. So the circumstance was that the political leadership of Nigeria, having been outwitted in Aburi, and when they came back, it was the civil servants who said, we cannot implement this. And who are the civil servants there? Alicia Yida, Damsida, Philip Asiodu. A dominance of minority
is powerful.
Yes.
He is the most powerful.
Yes.
And when I read here that Buhari didn't want him,
yes.
If Buhari didn't want him, would he have gotten the APC ticket?
Well, he did.
So what happened?
That's the humble. That is stressed.
What happened?
What happened? Let me tell you a story which many people don't know. When some governors, let me put it this way, when Atiku Abubakar emerged as the candidate for the PDP, People's Democratic Party, some governors from the north, about 5 of them, I won't mention them, went to see Buhari. And they said that if Atiku emerged as candidate, they didn't see anybody who could beat Atiku from the south. So they said the president should consider picking a candidate from the north.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
And so when that had happened, Buhari seemed to have relented. He didn't challenge them. But he had made up his mind that it was for Ahmed Lawan. So that's why you saw that Ahmed Lawan was insistent on his candidacy. A lot of things happened that time. You know, the vice president was running, Rotimi Amechi was running, and many of them were given false hope, I don't know why, by the people around the president that they were actually the anointed one.
But Lawan was the anointed one.
Lawan was the anointed one. But I don't think the Holy Spirit was in that anointing.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
Was there a deal before Buhari won the 2015 primaries of the APC?
No, there was no deal that I'm aware of.
There was no deal?
I don't think there was any deal.
There was no deal that after you
I believe there was a tacit understanding that if this man works to put you there, if he had an ambition also to come there. It was only natural for you to be in sync with him. But he didn't get it. He didn't cry over it. All he wanted to do was work for it.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
Buhari didn't want him.
Yeah?
How?
Buhari didn't want him because he was afraid of him. The people around him didn't want him. Remember that after Buhari became president, within a year, there was estrangement between Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Muhammadu Buhari. And the story even went so far as to state that they wanted to remove his pass to the State House. That probably happened or didn't happen, I'm not sure of that. But that was the level of the estrangement.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
Hey, the Sama Masai interview on State Affairs. How Tinubu beat all odds to become president. Are you watching on TikTok? Ambassador Without is on TikTok. Ambassador, thank you for joining the broadcast on TikTok. I can see Damien on TikTok. Damien says, what a country. Ambassador Without is saying, we are still in a country where our rulers destroyed us only to write a book to rewrite their evils. We are still in a country where our rulers destroyed us and only to write a book to rewrite their evils. Let them write their books. Let them tell their stories. Then we'll begin to analyze their stories. You know, we'll begin to pick holes in their stories. Let's write. Let the good, the bad, and the ugly write. The so-called bad ones are writing. Where are the good ones? What story have they got to tell? Tell your story. Write a book. Write a book. You've left the position of a governor for more than 20 years. We cannot read your story. What are you doing with your time? Huh? Right. Tell us what happened. Tell us. Dynamic is on TikTok. For whatever reason, they wanted Jonathan government out. That's what Dynamic is saying on TikTok. Are you watching on TikTok? Drop your comments. Drop your comments. I want to see you on TikTok. Are you on YouTube? Are you on YouTube? Let me see what you're saying on YouTube. Yeah, I can see YouTube. Philip is on YouTube. Dayo Oluwafemi says this contraption called Nigeria is a joke. It's not a joke. Nigeria is not a joke. Huh? Who fix it? If you say Nigeria is a joke, that means you are a joke. It is Nigerians that make up Nigeria. So you are a joke. That's what it means. Whatever Nigeria has become is because of you. So if you say Nigeria has fallen, you have fallen. If you don't exist, Nigeria will not exist. It's because the people exist. That is why Nigeria exists. On a good day, Nigeria is an abstract without you. Okay? So stop saying you are a joke. Or are you a joke? Tolulokbe Adesoya is on X. Thank you for being in class. Ukuola Tumishi, I greet you. You are on YouTube watching. Olumide Akinola, good morning to the radio man and fellow listeners. Thank you for greeting us. Michael Fadi, Michael is in class. Gabriel, Friday Gabriel, says, good morning, Radio Man and fellow students here. Fellow students. Fellow teachers, how are you? Adeniro Adenekon, good morning to you. I can see you on YouTube. Have you subscribed to my channel on YouTube? Subscribe. More interviews are coming your way. I had about 2 hours interview with Sam Masai. We'll be releasing that full interview on YouTube, not on this show. A lot of secrets were revealed in that interview. Sam Masai is a renowned journalist. He's a Tinubu man. Kushi is on YouTube. He says, remember that a previous administration summarily executed captured Boko Haram leaders. You're talking about the Yardwa administration. And Jonathan was the vice president to Yardwa. There was a phone video of the event. Usman Olayode says he's in class. He's on YouTube watching. Olarewaju, good morning. Anthony Obiora, how are you this morning? Good to have you in class. Gamina Govi is in class. Philip Nwazubu, good to have you. Yinka Dende Adigun Kayode is on YouTube. Ike Chuku, I can see you here. Chukanas Adejumo Temilolua, good morning. Kuchi says Gowon has yet to tell his story. Will Gowon ever tell his story? Time will tell. Kimbola Olushi says, good morning, Edmondo Bilo. I'm listening attentively to your program and deep insight of the book review. Akonye Umoba says, power is dangerous. He's on YouTube watching. Steve O.A., good morning. Daniel Nwosu, good to see you here. You saw a guy, we know where you belong. Hit the nail on the head. Who are you talking to? You know, some persons just comment, you don't know the direction. Always spell out your views. Some will come and say, you are not correct. And so if you are not correct, I expect you to put the correct version. Don't just say you are not correct. Say the right version, okay? In that case, we can now test your own correctness. All right. You know, some of them are also having banters here. Sometimes the banters are not worth reading because they are just throwing insults at each other. Sometimes I delete them. Once I just spot them, whenever I have the time, I just begin to delete them. Say, hey, bro, you got nothing to say here. Nwabo Good Luck says, for me, there has never been a country in Nigeria. But it's a country. It's a country. It's a member of the United Nations. That's the reality. It might be the country has not met your expectation. I understand that. But Nigeria is a country. It has all the paraphernalia of a country. It has a military. It has a president. It has governors. The institutions of the states are working. They might not be efficient. So it's a country. You might have a dream of another country. Yeah, that's okay. But as far as we stand now, there is a country. That's the point. Thank you. Thank you. I can see the names here. More persons are coming on YouTube. Tululokwe Adedeji. I can see you. Good morning, Radio Man. George is watching from Manchester. Andrew Uyamasi. Thank you. Thank you for being there, Andrew. Chuku Winifred says, good morning, the Radio Man. Crown Michael is on YouTube. Samsudin Arrow. Jubril Bello Di Matthew is on YouTube. Alake Olamiju. I can see you. Faith says your program brings so much illumination to the dark past of our nation. Bolo Mokwe Hamzat is on YouTube. I can see they are pouring in already. Okay, come on YouTube. Come meet me. I'm with you now. I'm listening. That's Bolo Mokwe Hamzat. Olua Kane says, good morning, Radio Man. Thank you. Thank you for the compliment. And thank you for the critique too. I appreciate you. Oyiko. Okay, this is Mayowa. He said, can we have a catalog of books that define Nigeria? Go on udarabooks.com. You have the catalog there. Udarabooks.com. Udara. That is Udara. Udara is Agbalumo. Udarabooks.com. I wanted to use agbalumo.com. It's too long. Agbalumo.com. It's too long. Udara is Agbalumo in Igbo. Udara. It was Agbalumo that first struck my mind. Agbara. So even to spell it became wahala. Bosun, can you spell Agbalumo? Spell it, say it. Let them hear your voice. Agbalumo.
AGB.
Uh-huh.
A.
Mm-hmm.
L. U.
Mm-hmm.
M-O.
Okay. Agbalumo. Agbalumo.com. If you are looking for a business name, pick that name now. Agbalumo.com. Yes, good morning, Radio Man. That is Ibrahim Afolabi. You heard the voice of Bosu there. Bosu is the studio manager. He runs the console. He manages the show. Bosu, well done. Taufik Hamad says, Edmond, I'm enjoying the class. Thank you for being there. Ismail Akinkumi. I can see you here. Aziz Adeoye. Wale Idu. Thank you for being in class. Bosu, let's listen to Peter Salifu. I'll be back on X to see what you're saying. Peter Salifu is an old soldier. He fought in the Nigerian Civil War. He tells his story. Does he collaborate or does he corroborate Babangida's view in his book, Peter Salifu on State Affairs? I have a war veteran with me. We have come to walk down history lane. We have come to reflect. It's about understanding where we are coming from and then look into the future. My guest is Peter Faruna Salifu, WO2 retired, old soldier. It's good to have you on State Affairs.
Thank you so much, Obilo.
How are you?
Fine.
You are 77.
77 years old.
Yeah. And you still remember your days as a soldier.
Exactly.
One thing I like about your memories is that you have decided to put pen to paper.
Exactly.
To tell your stories. You have a new book.
Exactly.
Entitled The Holocaust of the Nigerian Biafra War.
Exactly.
1967 to 1970. My memories from the war front. The Holocaust. You called it Holocaust.
Yes.
How?
Because the war was a very, very destructive war that we fought, that consumed lives, destroyed property. That was why I gave that my book that title.
Holocaust.
Holocaust.
Who committed the Holocaust?
Well, both sides, Nigeria and Biafrans.
Your new book, you made a very strong argument in chapter 2 of the book.
Yes.
Saying that the Igbos did not cause the war.
Yes.
Who caused the war?
The cause of that war, if we look at it closely, and through my intensive research, I discovered that that war was caused by the revengeful counter-coup of Major Murtala Mohammed, July 29, 1966. You see, that coup brought about hardship to Igbo people. The coup was a coup of revengeance. Through my research, I equally discover that the killings of July 29, 1966 can be referred to a massacre of Igbo people. The senseless killing, it to say Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon stemmed the degeneration of that killing into Igbo program, there could have no be war at all, civil war at all. But that coup, mass killing, snowball into Igbo program that brought about the war, ignited the war itself. That is my opinion. There's no other way you can look at it. That is the truth of the matter. And that's my strong belief. It was not the Unjogu revolution, 1966 revolution that was erroneously believed to be the person who caused the war, nor Igbo as a whole, nor Ojukwu as a whole. But the war was caused by that 1966, July 1966 coup.
You are an Igala man from Kogi State.
I'm from the north.
You are not an Igbo man.
I'm not an Igbo man. I'm not from the south.
You joined the Nigerian Army in 1967.
I joined the Nigerian Army in 1967.
The pogrom you are talking about took place in 1966.
In 1966.
You were in Kaduna then.
I was a living witness.
What did you see?
I saw so many things. I was there working at one of the textile industry at Kakuri, Kaduna, when the first coup was staged by Major Kaduna Nzogu. When the coup came up, it was jubilation all over the street in Kaduna. People were jubilating. And they were happy about that coup that took place. Because if you see how that coup came up, there were some events going on. The corruption, and nepotism. People disliked those things, and the crisis that came up in the Western region during 1965 election as a result of the ruling class trying to extend their political tentacle to cover the West. So it resulted to using talks to snatch away boxes. There was naked rigging of election that degenerated into almost anarchy in the West. So the riot in the West, which was popularly referred to as Operation Weti, where mass people were killed, was going on. The Prime Minister was helpless to quell the situation, and this created an avenue for the military people to take over.
And you said there were jubilations in the street of Kaduna.
Yes,
when Nzogu and Co struck.
But
why would they jubilate when Ahmadu Bello, their leader, was killed in that coup?
Because of the political happenings during that time. People were disenchanted with the level of corruption going on among the ruling class. The nepotism was going on. And it came to a level where vote did not count. In our nascent democracy in the Fourth Republic. So people were not happy.
Who did you see jubilating? Were they northerners?
The masses.
Or southernerners in Kaduna?
Masses of
the people. Did you jubilate?
Yes, I did.
You welcomed the coup?
I thought it was a relief, a big relief. I thought it was a big relief.
In your first book, this book,
yes,
this is your first book.
Exactly.
About the war.
Yeah.
You titled the book The Bloody Nigerian Biafran War.
Exactly.
You called the first coup a revolution.
A revolution.
Why was it a revolution?
It was a change in government. Change in government.
In this book, it's like you celebrated the first coup.
I celebrated it. If you look at the personality of those who staged the coup, the January coup, 1966, they were radicals, element, well read. Look at the life of Njogu, Cardinal Njogu. He was widely read with the school of Marxist philosophy, and he was vast in military history. So he was a radical socialist officer who wanted a change of government. He wanted a change of government. They wanted to clean up the government, the first republic, because they saw that that government of Baliwa was not working. It was not working. So they wanted to uproot it. So that was why Sadana was killed. Sadana was the leader of the party, NPC, who stayed in Kaduna. Tafawa Balewa was the prime minister who controlled the apparatus at the federal level. So Anuyo wanted to change this rotten apparatus. So they became targets. Two of them became targets of the revolutionaries.
You also made the point in your first book.
Yes.
That it was not an Igbo coup.
No, it's not an Igbo coup. It's not an Igbo coup. Because I disagree with those people who have been lying that Ujogu coup was an Igbo coup. Some of them are even arguing that because only Ademoyega, Major Ademoyega, who is a Yoruba major, if not the whole 8 of them were Igbos. That was the premise they look at it from. And it was a wrong premise. You see, a revolution is a revolution. Whether people are from the same place, provided you have the same mind to remove those in power, it doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter at all. I don't agree with those people who tag Nzogu revolution as Igbo revolution.
You know, some would say that the killings were targeted towards certain regions.
Mm-hmm.
Why another region was excluded from the killings.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the region that was excluded from the killing, the eastern region, most of the officers that carried out that coup came from that region or close to it. So they have defined that coincidence as an Igbo coup.
Not even coincidence. You can't say it's coincidence.
Okay.
It's a reality. The revolutionary wanted to change the government. Who were the people who were holding the apparatus of the government? The ruling class, the ruling party. Sarana was the head of the party. He stayed in Kaduna. If you want to change that government without eliminating Sarana, do you think that government that coup will succeed? That was why they became target of the revolutionaries.
What about Akintola?
Akintola was, yes, Akintola. You see what happened was that they made an alliance with the party of Akintola. That was, I was telling you that the ruling party wanted to extend their political tentacle to capture power in the West. And it deteriorated to crisis, serious crisis. You see, so Western region became a problematic region that must be dealt with. The Prime Minister, Tafawa Balewa, who's supposed to use his power to quell the situation in the West, refused. So when Uyo came up, they wanted to bring peace in the western region. Even when they are talking about Igbo Coup, I always laugh at them. When you say that it was an Igbo Coup, who was the person who was earmarked to become the prime minister? Was it Okpara in the east? Was it Azikiwe, who had no power, who was a titular president general? It was Awolowo from the west. Then what type of interest the revolutionary wanted to protect? If they call it an Igbo Coup, picking somebody from the west to become the prime minister. So they had a national interest, not an Igbo interest at all.
You sound as if Nzogu is your hero.
Yeah, he's my hero. He's my hero. Up till now, he's my hero. He's my hero.
Otsoja, you're saying that?
Yes. And because if he's not a hero, he's a nationalist. Nzogu was a nationalist to the core. You see, people, all these politicians are talking from their both sides of their mouth. When Nzogu was killed in July 1967, around the campuses of Nsukka University, in the night, by 21 Battalion, under Captain Wushishi. They recognized his body and they informed Go on, order them to remove the body to Kaduna for a befitting burial, national burial. He was given that national honor. Nzogu was given that national honor. So he was a hero. And when people talk about Igbo Coup, I always laugh at them.
If you are interested in understanding the man Nzogu, I am recommending this book to you, Nzogu by Olusegun Obasanjo. It seems to be the only one who has taken time to give us a biography of Kaduna Nzogu. So this is one book that is revealing about the person of Nzogu. And Warrant Officer Peter Salifu, retired, seems to admire Nzogu a lot. So you can get this book on udarabooks.com, or you can order it through our WhatsApp numbers. So the numbers are on the screen.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
Centralization, if you like, that the Midwest stood for there. They advised him not to accept, not to implement. That wasn't the situation for Ojukwu, because he had come back happy that they've not broken Nigeria, but they have rearranged Nigeria in such a way that will allow the heat to come down. But that was not to be. It was in that mood that they went to do a reconciliation.
We will continue this discourse. Let's leave it at this point. And I hope you'll be coming back soon.
I love the topic. And beyond that, I've told you over and over, I always find it difficult to say no to you, not because you're headman, but because of your approach to the work.
Thank you.
And because I see what you want to get at. If we don't understand the circumstances of our past, we are likely to repeat the same mistake. If we have properly situated the Civil War the coups and so on properly, maybe Nigeria will not be here.
And we still have the opportunity to situate it.
We still have it.
The future is bright.
It's still in our hand.
And we can shape it.
That's why I like state affairs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Dr. Yemi Farumbi. He'll be coming back soon. We are not done with this discourse. Awolowo and the Civil War. I am Edmondo Bilo. I worked with Tosin Ayeni Oladele, Ayo Ashimolowo. I worked with Marian Giwa and Samuel Kalu. Together, we are bringing you this broadcast. Don't forget to join us again on Friday. We have a broadcast on Friday. So now let me tell you when we will run the broadcast. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 2 p.m. West African time. So always join us. We are discussing history, politics, and power. Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. Then on Saturday, you can always join me on Splash FM from 8 to 11 a.m. So I'll be back on Friday to discuss the issues of history and politics. But next week, Wednesday, I'll be bringing back Dr. Yemi Farumbi so that we'll look at Obafemi Awolowo and the Civil War. This time, we'll be looking at Awolowo's role as the Minister or Commissioner of Finance during the war. We'll look at the war proper, and then we'll get your reactions. Thank you for always being there. I am Edmondo Bilo. Enjoy your day.
We are likely to repeat the same mistake. If we have properly situated the Civil War, the coups, and so on properly, maybe Nigeria will not be here.
And we still have the opportunity to.
He used to use one word. Let's move far apart so that we can come back again. He used to say something like that. And that's what we needed. A time for the heat to come down. But the East was not given that opportunity. There was not even demonstration of willingness, of sincerity to make reparations for what they have gone through.
Soldiers like Murtala Muhammad were waiting to march on the East.
And in his own case, he marched and it killed so many people trying to cross from Asaba to Onitsha. Some unintelligent move that any non-military person would not do. Onitsha was under the control of Biafra. We were going to cross from Asaba. Lowland. Onitsha was on the slightly high land. We were going to cross across River Niger. They just opened fire on them. And they lost. As General Akinle Ade will tell you such stories. Read about them. So the circumstance was that the political leadership of Nigeria, having been outwitted in Aburi, and when they came back, it was the civil servants who said, we cannot implement this. And who are the civil servants there? Alicia Yida.
Bilo is live.
Did you enjoy the Peter Salifu interview? He wrote a book, The Bloody Nigeria Biafra War. an eyewitness account of the war from the frontline trenches. He's reworking the book. Hopefully, the new edition will be out soon. He has told his story. The full interview with Peter Salifu is on my YouTube channel. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Are you on X? I can see you on X. Thank you for being there. Akitunde Damilari is on X. He said, good morning, Radio Man. Edmund, is there no more repercussions for evil done anymore? I don't know why people gathered to celebrate IBB for all atrocities he had committed to us in this country. I can never appreciate anything that comes from such... All right. Akintude Damilari. KG Akinwale, thank you, KG. I can see you here on X. Have you reposted on X? Let's repost. Once we repost, what we do is to drive the lecture to more people who will gain from it. As you repost, you bring in more people into the class. We need to grow the class so that we are able to pass down history, politics, and power to a broad spectrum of people around the world so that they can join the class. So let's repost on X. Are you watching on TikTok? Let's share. We need to extend the frontiers of the class to different persons. So as you repost, you get more people into the class of history, politics, and power. Let me introduce you to this book, The Untold Story of the Nigeria-Biafra War, a chronological reconstruction of the events and circumstances of the Nigerian Civil War, a book written by Dr. Luke Nnaemeka Aneke. Look at this big book on the wall. It's like a diary on the wall. It's a book you should have in your home. Issues before the war, events during the war, and events after the war. Well written, well documented in this book of more than 760 pages. The Untold Story of the Nigeria-Biafra War. Order your copy on udarabooks.com or through my WhatsApp number 080 309 18449. Yes, A Journey in Service, an autobiography by Ibrahim Babangida. A Journey in Service, an autobiography by Ibrahim Babangida. You can order your copy through my WhatsApp number 080 309 18449. A Journey in Service, an autobiography by Ibrahim Babangida. Since we are talking about the military, have you read the book Soldiers of Fortune? Soldiers of Fortune, Nigerian Politics from Buhari to Babangida. You see, for those who are angry with Babangida's book, the Babangida is telling his own story. If you read this, you can counter Babangida, because this is one of the best historical accounts of Nigeria's soldiers of fortune from 1983 to 1993. That means from Buhari to Babangida, written by Mark Siolin. This book is a classic. Soldiers of Fortune. You can order your copies on udarabooks.com. udarabooks.com or through my WhatsApp number 080 309 18449. Beating All Odds, Diary and Essays on How Bola Tinubu Became President, written by Sam Masai. You know, I asked him in that interview, why did he write the article Obituary? Hey, you know, he said he went out of circulation where he could not stand the fires from the obedient. But that is not on this edition. When we put it on YouTube, you hear that part of the interview. What obedience did to Sama Masai. Masai has written a book, Beating All Odds. Sama Masai on State Affairs. Enjoy the interview. Welcome to another class of history, politics, and power. It's always a class of books. So I want to read from the book we'll be discussing on this edition of State Affairs. The author writes, I knew the president, Muhammadu Buhari, did not want him. The peacocks and vampires around him did not want him. Some stakeholders in the country did not only resent him, they were afraid of him. The plot thickened quickly. Conspiracies festered in sewers and in the open. And it began with the party's top brass. In cahoots with the presidential cabal, they edged out Adams Oshomole's executive as the first major step to immobilize Tinubu's ambition. I just read from this insightful book entitled Beating All Odds, Diaries and Essays on how Bola Tinubu became president. The author of this book is Sam Omatsei, a renowned journalist. He is my guest on State Affairs. Mr. Masai, it's good to have you on State Affairs.
It's my pleasure.
Buhari didn't want him.
Yeah.
How?
Buhari didn't want him because he was afraid of him. The people around him didn't want him. Remember that after Buhari became president, within a year, there was estrangement between Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Muhammadu Buhari. And the story even went so far as to state that they wanted to remove his pass to the State House. That probably happened or didn't happen, I'm not sure of that. But that was the level of the estrangement. But again, he knew that if Bola Ahmed Tinubu did not come to his side, his desire for a second term would be difficult because the structure and the genius of Bola Tinubu might immobilize his capacity to get a second term. So he befriended him again for a second term. It was after the second term was guaranteed in an election that they started to plot against him. And one of the first things they did was to take over the party structure. That is, the party top brass from him. Because they found that Adams Oshomole was his man. And if Adams Oshomole is head of the party, it will be difficult. It was not him alone. Some governors did not want that to happen. That is, they didn't want Ashwaji to stay right high in the party. Of course, the cabal around him, the men around Buhari, didn't want him. So they removed Oshomole, and that was the first step towards it. If you remember that time, they were talking about a consensus candidate, and the person who said it even was not there to even survive the primaries in his own party in his state. That was Udo Edehe. He said, we are going to have a consensus candidate as president. So they couldn't get that working. So let me not go so far. But they dreaded the capacity of the man to do things like he's doing today. That if he was allowed to ride to become president, then nobody could control him. That was the reason. You can't control Tinubu, but he could control any other person if he plotted them.
How did he react to that earlier alienation from the presidency after the 2015 election? How did Tinubu react to it?
Well, Tinubu was not happy. I personally met him, he was not happy. But he was not a man who would relent from supporting the party, because he said, I built APC. I can't leave APC. So we have to be in this party together. There were moves, including some people who are in APC today, to move him away from the APC to serve as presidential candidate against Buhari in 2019. They were making moves. He was aware of that. But he told them, I cannot leave the house that I built.
By the 2015 election, by the
Yes.
time of the 2015 election,
Yes.
was there any insinuation that Tinubu was interested in the presidency after Buhari?
Yes, people knew that he was interested.
He had always
Some
been
people
interested.
knew that he was interested, yes. He didn't really hide it that much that he was interested.
So Buhari knew he was interested.
Buhari knew he was interested.
Was there a deal before Buhari won the 2015 primaries of the APC?
No, there was no deal that I'm aware of.
There was no deal.
I don't think there was any deal.
There was no deal that after you,
I
it is me.
believe there was a tacit understanding that if this man works to put you there, if he had an ambition also to come there, it was only natural for you to be in sync with him. But he didn't get it. He didn't cry over it. All he wanted to do was work for it. And you could see that even when he wanted to run, when he decided to run, he went to the president to say, look, I am running, to formally tell him I'm running for the president of the country. He didn't want to announce it the day he announced it. He didn't want to, because he was planning, I think he announced it earlier in January, but immediately after the holidays, or late January, or maybe he was supposed to announce it late January, but he was ambushed by reporters and he didn't want to tell them why he went to see the president. And he told me, well, since the reporters came around him and they asked him why he went then, so I just told them. That
was when he mentioned his lifelong ambition.
Yes, lifelong ambition, yes.
So at that point...
He didn't intend to announce it that day.
Oh.
Yeah, he didn't. He wanted to make a more formal announcement. But Tinubu always understands the moment. So he said, well, let me just seize this moment and announce it.
He understands the moment.
He understands the moment.
Because if you read this book, you would see an author who likes Tinubu.
Yes.
An author who claims to understand Tinubu.
To an extent.
To an extent. Now, if you read this book, you would agree that Tinubu is a strategic thinker.
Yes.
What makes him a strategic thinker?
Well, that's a very good question to ask. He's a strategic thinker because he has always been a survivor. And for Nigeria, there are two things that people must understand about Tinubu to make him what he is. I can describe him as somebody who descended from the sky and erupted from the earth simultaneously.
You are a poet.
So that is what he is. He's a grassroots man. His mother, Iyaloja, was a grassroots woman in the market, a leader of the market. And you cannot get more grassroots than the market. He was unconsciously understudying his mother in the grassroots sense, understanding how life was in the grassroots, how people behave, their instincts, their motivations, their attitudes, their vocabulary. He understood them at the grassroots. Then don't forget that it was at the echelon of corporate Nigeria with Mobu, where he was treasury, was number 3, was the most senior Nigerian in Mobu before he became a senator. So he understood, as I said, he descended from the sky. He understands the corporate world. He knows how to speak English with you when you want to speak it. He knows how to discuss the ins and outs of economic theory with you when you want to discuss it. Then if you go to the grassroots, he knows how to discuss Amala with you. He knows how to discuss how to speak with the area boys. He knows the language to use to discuss with them. So that's why I say it descends from the sky and erupts from the earth simultaneously. So he understands the oppressor, he understands the oppressed. So he understands the language of the oppressor, he understands the oppressed. So when people talk about Tinubuism, that is what it is. It is about a man who grasps both the elite and the grassroots at the same time and can conjoin them seamlessly.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
Splash FM 105.5.
Mr. Teacher, please.
Some would think that you betrayed Tinubu.
Yeah, that's their cup of tea.
You know when the news started.
Yeah, some of them even said he was the one feeding me, that he was the one who made me, he was the one who did this, who did that. Look, Tinubu has always known that I'm an independent person.
So when you guys went to him to contribute to the founding of the news,
yes,
what was the deal?
Well, I never knew him until that moment. We got to know him through Chris Mama, a former journalist who was an aide to, who later became an aide to Atiku. So he was the one who introduced us, and he said he loved our stance against Babangida, against Abiola asking us to go and apologize and that kind of and that. Oh, he would love to invest in us, and like many other investors, invested in us, and we became friends. We became allies. I mean, if anything comes up, you come in and seek my opinion. He will tell you that Femi will tell you straight. He will tell you the way it is. In fact, let me give you a little story. I think in year 2000, was it year 2002 or 2001? I went visiting him on January 1 with my 2 sons. One of them is a lawyer and the other is another accountant. And we just walked in there, and he came down, and one of the boys just shot his hand to shake him and said, is that the way you are going to greet me? I'm the governor of Lagos State. And the boy said, and so what? You want to knock my head on the ground because you are governor?
He said that to him?
He was 5, yes. I said, I'm a Babaini. That's his father's son. That kind of, just to tell you the way he perceives me. He knows that I'm not a Katawala. I'm not somebody that koto to people. I will tell you if you are doing well. I will tell you if you are not doing well. I will tell you what you don't like to hear. I just put out a story in Leaders and Their Men, where when after he won, the security shows a sobriquet of what is it called now? Superman. For him, there's a code they use for leaders when they're guarding you. So when they're talking about you, others will not know they're talking about you. So they give you Superman. And I went to him and I said, no, you can't be a Superman. I said, there is a way it's going to affect your psyche when they begin to see you as Superman.
I said, we have to choose something else, because only God is a Superman.
You told him that?
I told him that, how old was I then? And, and what did
he accept your advice?
Oh, yes. He said, okay, Femi, what do you want them to come? I said, let's pick Eagle. And he accepted.
Eagle?
Eagle.
So, but now you say lion.
Well, I don't know.
It's not a lion. If I had moved from the lion of Bodilum.
Let me give you another example.
Okay.
I don't know whether you want me to say it, but I think I will say it. For the sake of those who were calling me betrayer or that kind of, this guy, just guys who have no sense of history. He called me one day and said I should come to Ikoyi, and I went to him. I said, congratulations to me. I said, what is that? He said he has been called by Yaradua to come and be his finance minister under the government of unity. I said, finance minister under Yaradua, you are AC or
he is the most powerful.
Yes.
And when I read here that Buhari didn't want him.
Yes.
If Buhari didn't want him, would he have gotten the APC ticket?
Well, he did.
So what happened?
That's the humble. That is stressed.
What happened?
What happened? Let me tell you a story, which many people don't know. When some governors, let me put it this way, when Atiku Abubakar emerged as the candidate for the PDP, People's Democratic Party, some governors from the north, about 5 of them, I won't mention them, went to see Buhari, and they said that if Atiku emerged as candidate, they didn't see anybody who could beat Atiku from the south. So they said the president should consider picking a candidate from the north. The candidates were told by the president, Buhari, that time, okay, go and give me a list of possible contenders. And then they went back and drew a list of all of themselves. That's 5. Then look at the list and say, look at these people. They are recommending themselves.
Who are these governors?
They're governors from the north.
You know their names?
I don't want to mention their names.
Okay.
No, so
why don't you want to mention their names?
Well, some of them, the information was given to me in confidence. So that's why I don't want to mention their names. So Buhari now told Ahmed Lawan, he said they should send a message to Ahmed Lawan to start preparing.
Buhari said that?
He sent message to Ahmed Lawan. I'm telling you, good authority.
Interesting.
That he should start preparing. You remember during the primaries that Tinubu, after he won the primaries, he gave it to Ahmed Lawan and said, you went to contest against me. In other words, in spite of all I did to you, I that saved you from so many situations, you went to contest against me.
He gave it to him
privately. He gave it to him publicly. After I won, when he was giving his speech, it was there, it was in public space. He said it. So he told Lawan. So he sent text messages to the head of the Northern Governors Forum. That is Lalong, the governor of Plateau State then, that he wanted to see him.
Buhari sent message to Lalong.
Yes, that's what I learned. That he sent a message to Lalong. Lalong had not obliged. Perhaps because he also had an inclination to another candidate who was not in the north. So, the information about the 5 candidates meeting Buhari now leaked to other governors in the north.
Governors like El-Rufai.
Specifically, El-Rufai. And El-Rufai was not happy because he was not one of them. That's my reading. He was not one of them. He was angry, so mobilized other people that they had to hold a meeting. They called the head of the governors forum in the north, Lalong. Well, Lalong was also holding back. They didn't hold a meeting. Buhari also wanted to see him. They didn't hold a meeting. It was also stalling until it got to a point when the primaries were now getting very close, and Lalong had a specific instruction from the president to see him on a particular day at about 2 p.m. So, in order to give the report of the northern governors to the president, now Lalong summoned a meeting in Abuja earlier that day. The northern governors were there. It was acrimonious until it became conclusive. So most of the governors now decided, since they could not decide who among them will be picked to run for governor, to run for president, they now wrote a long memorandum saying that they are now ceded the presidency to the South.
So the struggle initially was who among them should be picked.
Yes.
So when they could not reach a consensus,
it was not an unselfish decision to concede it to the South. It was not unselfish.
Interesting.
They were not doing charity to the South. They just couldn't get somebody among them.
So was
no consensus.
Was Tinubu lucky?
That is part of that's what Shakespeare said. He said there's a divinity in the lives of men. No matter how rough hewn it is, there's a divinity at work in the lives of men.
So if they had reached a consensus,
it would have been problematic.
Look at what you wrote here. You said, I had said once to him, that is Tinubu, that I didn't fear the general election, but only the party primary.
Yeah.
Little did I know that once the party wheel horses failed at the primary, they would move their artillery to the final battleground. Sama Masaye continues, if you win the primary, you will have nothing to fear. I had declared in my naivety. Tinubu did not say a word in reply, only a smile, half quizzical, half knowing. You write well.
Thank you.
Very close to the primary, though, we spoke on the phone, and I wondered if he was wary of the moves among other contestants. I asked him if he had a plan B in case the party cabal wronged the ticket from him. Why did you ask him of plan B?
Because I was thinking, will you just fall over? Will you just collapse your system or your ambition if they try to say, okay, we have given it to somebody else, and you're not going to run on APC ticket? So I wanted to know, would you rally behind the person, or will you think of getting a ticket elsewhere?
Did he give you any answer?
I thought I put it there in the book.
I want you to tell us.
No, he said he didn't see anything on the horizon. And he told me once, he said that, that he was going to win.
You said here he did not sound worried.
No, he didn't.
I wanted to know if he might contemplate another platform.
Okay, exactly.
Or party. Or if he tended to fight it early or preempt any move to foist another candidate. His voice was aplomb.
Yes.
So you could say destiny pushed it to him.
Yes.
So after facing that hurdle,
yeah.
So what was Buhari's reaction after the northern governors had to say, let's move it to the south?
Let me tell you, when the northern governors decided, not all of them did. I think the Kogi governor exempted himself because he too wanted to run.
That's Yaya Bello.
3 of them, of the governors, were supposed to report the decision of the northern governors to Buhari. So 3 of them, including Lalong, were to go to report it to Buhari. But everybody entered their own cars with their own convoy. When Lalong reached there, Discover was the only one there. The other 2 governors were not there.
Who were the other 2 governors?
I don't really know. The 2 of them, they were not there. So, well, he said, I'm here, I'm the head, so I'll go to see the president. When he reached there, the scope, that's the chief of protocol, said Buhari was not available to see him. Apparently, the information had already leaked to the presidency, and the presidency was not happy about the outcome. But there were other meetings too. After the decision there were other meetings held between the governors and the president. And the president asked Lalong to make the case for the presidency to go south. According to those who were there, they said he held a pen and a paper, that's Buhari. He wanted to take notes. Well, by the time Buhari was done, Lalong was done, he dropped his pen. He didn't take any notes. I know that the secretary to the federal government that time,
that's Boss Mustafa.
Boss Mustafa was there. I'm not sure I think his chief of staff was also there with him. And so when that had happened, Buhari seemed to have relented. He didn't challenge them. But he had made up his mind that it was for Ahmed Lawan. So that's why you saw that Ahmed Lawan was insistent on his candidacy. A lot of things happened that time. You know, the vice president was running, Rotimi Amechi was running, and many of them were given false hope, I don't know why, by the people around the president that they were actually the anointed one.
But Lawan was the anointed one.
Lawan was the anointed one. But I don't think the Holy Spirit was in that anointing, if we put it that way. because at the last moment, before they went to the Eagle Square, also they went for the primaries. The service chiefs wanted to see the president to try to say, okay, where do you want us to go? What direction do you want us to go? As if they wanted to get a specific order and instruction. So when they came to see the president also said, what are you people doing here? You go there and just do your job. So they left the whole thing free of any intervention.
So Buhari did not intervene?
Didn't.
So at that point, you would say Buhari did well, right?
He did well, yes.
He did well?
He did well.
If he had intervened?
We don't know what would have happened, because people who were going to be, their delegates were already there. They already knew who they were voting for. So if he was going to intervene, I think it was too late, if you asked me.
At that time?
At that time.
Was Buhari politically naive? Because
that is a matter to be determined in future. But you can say that Asiwaju Tinubu was politically lucky.
Because I'm wondering, with the enormous powers of the president,
yes,
he would have swung the primary to his own candidate.
Yes, but you know that he first said that he was not going to interfere in the primary.
Yes.
Then later, he came out with a very vague expression. I've forgotten what the expression was, where he said that they should allow him to intervene. I did one of my columns on that and analyzed the use of language in that the grammar of politics. My column there, grammar of politics, in which you use one expression that it should allow him leverage, and we didn't know what it meant when he said that, and so it looked like it was either doubtful of his moral capacity or awed by his political prowess.
Or was it that Buhari was Machiavellian? Because in your writings, you always quote Machiavelli. You always make reference to the prince in some of your articles.
In some of them, yeah.
You know, perhaps he wanted Tinubu, but he was just dancing around deception in politics. And when it mattered most, he said, okay, let's go, knowing fully well that Tinubu was already in control of the delegates.
If Buhari comes to tell me that, then I will call him the greatest strategist in Nigerian history.
Perhaps I'm telling you now.
Maybe. If he says that, then it means that he created a great decoy.
Because that's what I'm seeing. Because he had the power to swing it.
He had the power. He had the power to swing it.
And he did not do that.
He did not do it.
And he left it.
He left it.
Tinubu
but he had started it. But he probably was overawed by the machine that was already in place. Because while he was working the other guys to his men to support Ahmed Lawan, the governors didn't seem to get any direct order from the governors, because if he had given direct orders to the governors, they won't be coming with lists and they won't be fighting among themselves about who in the north should represent us and who should not.
Perhaps he wanted to wear them out and create the path for
Asiwaju. That would be a great. That would be a great strategy.
And
he himself, unless he says it, nobody will believe it. And if he says it, some people will say it was an afterthought. So no matter how he takes it, if it was true, then it was true because he thought about it after all. It's like a slapstick. You know, you feel the pain after the slap.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
All right, let's take one call. Who is that caller that will call me on this edition of State Affairs? 070-694-930-00. Who's that caller that will call? I was supposed to give out some books today. Or Chuko bought some books for the listeners. Oh, okay. Next week I'll give out the books. A listener of the show bought 4 books from Udara Books and asked me to give them out. So next week I'll give out the books. I didn't remember on time. Hello, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right.
The book of Babangida yesterday. In fact, it let all everybody to know that these people we are free, they contribute negatively or positively to the situation of this country. And it's telling us, youth, incoming, we need to do well. Not to see these people.
All right, the radio man must go now. Next week is another time on State Affairs. I am Edmondo Pilo. The next program is Ijoba Tiwa with Seun Special. And it's a special program. So, have a special time with Seun Special. Stay tuned. It is Splash 105.5 FM, the Integrity Station.
Daganan kilo betening home lo moham di beta maso sanalom muasa benge kaputo
State Affairs.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo.